Hey, welcome to episode 2 of the Wayfarer Podcast. I'm Zach Elliott with Jared, and that's Jonathan, and this is Katia. Riley's back there. So good to have everybody with us. I love that you were with us for episode 1, if you were, and if not, welcome to episode 2. Our hope is to recover and explore, and we said this on episode 1, what for centuries was the most helpful metaphor for understanding the Christian life, that of a wayfarer, therefore the Wayfarer Podcast. And it's really us on a journey, following a way. And so we're glad that you're here with us for the conversation and to share life on the way. Last episode, we said we hope these conversations weren't just content. There's plenty of that. There's people filling every space that we can possibly fill with content. We wanted this to be more than that and more of an invitation to an embodied reality, to life together, to friends walking this Christian faith out in 2023 at the edge of what we say is advanced modernity. And so that journey with friends is what we're going for. And so if you're just jumping into episode 2, welcome. And we count you as a part of that group. We say it's only true if it's true. And I hope you had a chance to get to know a little bit more about this whole crew. We're going to do a little bit of that tonight because there's just no way you can capture all the life that happens. Like we were just in the other room laughing and I was thinking we should capture all of that, but we miss it. So I hope you get to spend a little bit of time getting to know everybody. But Jared, I'm curious, as that's been unfolding, anything that has surprised you in the margins?
Yeah. I mean, the fact that we're even doing this is like pretty crazy. That it's like, it's so hard to do things. It's like so much easier to not do things. And I think Jonathan's little like sly comedy is like something you don't really expect from him if you just meet him. But man's got jokes.
They're deep in there, hidden. Get it? That was no. Thanks for the pity laugh.
It's like, oh man, deep in there, hidden. Write it down. Zing. Right.
Not on the spot. See, I couldn't do stand up.
Yeah, it's all right. I can't either.
People didn't know that about you before last episode. That you actually, I said you're a paid comic, and you said I've been paid to stop. And yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
You had to balance the two sheets, way more on the stop side than on the pro side so far. We'll see. We're working on it.
Well, it is cool to get to do something like this together, and it does take effort. And I said it last episode, it takes courage. That's one of the things I love about all of us doing this together. It's risky to put anything out there. Brené Brown wrote a great book, Daring Greatly. And the whole setup for the book is it's not the critic who counts. It's the one who enters the arena and dares to be judged, dares to have people ridicule it or mock it or question it. And there was an urgency enough to this project to I think everybody was having private conversations and private experiences going, yeah, that's my experience. I've got questions. I'm wrestling with my faith. I've got friends who are doing that. We're all doing it privately. And it felt like we couldn't do that in a space that was open and vulnerable and transparent. We said, why don't we just do it together? And I bet that there's a lot of other people who feel the same way. So, but it does take work to get it done. So, yeah, and we're glad you're here, and we're glad you're here. To get us into getting to know each other. And I think that this would be more fun if we did like a lightning round, like speed dating. And so you got to go fast. I don't want you to overthink these. You can't overthink these. But just so that people get a sense of who you are. Katia, favorite food?
Off the bat, bowls. Any type of bowl, okay? And that sounds good.
Like steak?
That's such a
That literally came out of like my gut. No, like Chipotle bowls, acai bowls, like Asian bowls.
I thought you meant like a bowl, like bowls, like the animal at first, and I was so confused
like
and worried.
Oh,
at the
like
same
a
time
bowl.
for a
Cows
second.
are good too.
No.
USF bowls.
I know. I was gonna say I couldn't do that to my school.
I feel like you've picked like a way food gets delivered, like a
No,
bowl.
It's
no,
like a
no.
pond.
Like a
There's
rice
too many
base.
but there's too many different kinds of bowls. Your answer's wrong. That's what we're saying here. That's what we're here to do on this podcast.
Hey,
It's her favorite food.
it's my food.
You'll
We're here to
get
tell
your
you.
own
We're
check.
telling you when you're wrong. That's what we do on the
Slow down,
Wayfarer
Jared.
podcast.
Have you never had like a nice bowl? Like you can't just explain. It's like it's got the carbs, it's got the meat, it's got the dairy. You know, it's just a bowl.
Sure.
just
It's
a
like if
bowl.
I asked you
See-
what your favorite restaurant was and you were like Golden Corral.
What?
It's like I like all the food.
You know
are
what though?
talking
I think that it's
Some
true.
people love Golden Corral.
I do. I'm a fan.
It's like
brand
Bob
loyal.
Evans, Cracker Barrel. It's the same vibe.
I'm with you. Bowls,
Right?
Bowls are
bowls,
Bowls.
right? Breakfast bowl, lunch
breakfast
bowl, dinner
bowl.
bowl. It's all good.
You can't go
Yeah,
wrong
yeah.
with a bowl.
That's
But
right.
not
I can't stop
food.
thinking of
All
You
right.
could
bowls
open
like
a
that.
restaurant and
Riley,
just have bowls.
Riley, I'm gonna save us for episode 2. Favorite show.
Favorite show. Oh, I feel like that's a tough question because there's so many different ones, different time periods. But like I said, lightning round. I'm gonna go Ted Lasso. Ted
I've
Lasso.
never watched
Very
that.
few shows make me laugh, smile, and cry.
Mm.
Ted Lasso has made me cry. I will say that.
Come on.
So,
All in the same episode.
yeah, all in the same episode.
Now you're talking.
Very all over the place. Crazy.
Yeah,
Come
it's a
on.
good. Ted Lasso won all sorts of awards. Yeah.
Yeah, like every season, I think they won an award.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Ted Lasso.
There you go.
Hmm.
All right, take it away, Jonathan. Favorite holiday.
Definitely Thanksgiving, which we're coming up on, and every year I love to smoke, like just to get like a good clean burn. You know, you can just sit there for like 12 hours.
I thought you
between
just said I
between
like to
Katya's
smoke.
bowls and yours, like just blunted. I like to
We'd
smoke.
like to-
Yeah, I mean, like,
I'd like to introduce our
all
first
day.
sponsor,
Like, I don't have to
weed.
do anything. Not barbecue, man. I'm
Yeah.
talking about
There you go.
pork.
Yeah.
pork
Smoking
butt. My goodness, guys.
You
Is
just
that
did
just
like a
profiled?
fat pause. So I was like, you know what? I'll respect if
Nah,
you
yeah,
like
yeah.
it, but
Talk about long, slow, deep.
Yeah, there you go. Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
I
It's my
love
wife's favorite holiday. Yeah, it's
That-
great.
I love making barbecue for a bunch of people.
Yeah,
You
I
make
think
it.
and being
Oh,
around the
yeah.
table.
Mhm.
And that's what you do. You smoke it.
Mhm.
How long does it take to
Mm.
smoke a turkey?
A turkey, like, depends on the size, but 8 to 12 hours.
Okay.
Have you ever done the fry thing?
Yeah, I did that
It's
for the first time
dangerous.
last year, and I overcooked it. It was
Ooh.
unfortunate.
Have you
But I
ever-
had to in the smoker, so it was okay.
That's for an episode for another show, but I do want to know how those blow up because every year there's
Right?
the warning, like
Water.
74 people will die this year trying to make a turkey. Yeah, I don't know if that's a real number, but
That's scary. I have seen videos of them blowing up though, just like fire.
It's such a shame when ham is always better than turkey anyway. So
Oh.
that's my hot
You haven't
take.
tried my smoked
Shots
turkey
That's my
yet.
hot take.
Cancel Jared.
there you go.
Cancel Jared.
Well, between this crew, right? I think that's what I love about all of you, whether you like bowls or you don't like bowls. Or you like, what's your favorite holiday?
My favorite holiday, off the bat, Valentine's Day. Have
Okay.
I ever had a Valentine? No.
How do you know?
But I just
You
love
just dream about the
Seems
day that
fun.
you'll get a Valentine.
No, you see, Valentine's Day for me is more about just like love in general. And I just have so much fun with it. Like, I have Valentine's Day, give myself self-care. I don't even know. I just really love how everyone's just like in love with life. And so I love Valentine's Day. That's
wait.
it.
The
I
day
think that's
after
great.
when the candy's on discount's pretty great too.
Truth.
What's your favorite holiday? Is that it? They have Valentine's.
No, I would say, I mean, see, I feel like Halloween now like turns into this kind of like fall hangout a lot of the times where there's like a bonfire and like those are just like great vibes.
Yeah.
Cool.
So it's like not really the trick-or-treater type at this age. I've tried. You have to wear a pretty convincing costume to get candy.
I hear there's a photo of
UPS?
you in a UPS outfit.
Yeah, you know, what can you do but deliver?
Favorite holiday?
Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving. Yeah, round the table.
Boom.
All right. Well, that's what people can write in. We want to know what your favorite holiday is. That's what we'll be asking. We'll get lots of mail from people telling us what their favorite holiday is and a bunch of Valentines for Katya. People will be like, we're reaching out.
Put it in the comments.
That's right. Last episode, we explored the recovering and the embodying Wayfarer posture. And so we were doing it together. This episode, I want you to think more about pace. Last time it was more about setting the perspective and thinking about what is this journey of a wayfarer. But I want to get into the pace of the conversation and the pace of wayfaring. So we live in a time when time is compressed. It feels like time is moving faster and faster and faster. And the people debate that idea of whether it really is or not, but there's no doubt that technology has compressed time. So it feels like what happens between the moment you wake up and the moment you go to bed is just full. Do you feel that, the compression of time? And I'm just curious if you all are feeling that same compression of time, and how that expresses itself in your life. Does it wear you out? Do you find yourself getting worn out? Does it energize you and then you drop? Do you find yourself wishing that you had more time? How's that compression of time feeling in your life right now?
I feel like, honestly, it's all very overwhelming, because it's like you see life as this like long trek, but at the same time you have to have everything figured out, and it's super fast, and like there's no time to like sit and actually figure it out, because like you have to have a whole plan, and how are you going to pay for things and all this stuff, and it's just very overwhelming. And yeah, I don't know. I think that's my thoughts on that for sure.
Yeah, it can be tough. I mean, I think right now it feels like I have a lot of free time, like on weekends, and a lot of the time it's like you don't have a lot of stuff going on, so there's like downtime, but it's so easy for that downtime to feel pressured. It's like, well, I need to be doing something. It's like I work all week, so it's like, what am I doing on the weekends to make that great? And that can just feel overwhelming, because it's like, oh, just resting for 2 hours can feel like, oh, I'm wasting my weekend away, where it's like, no, the rest is good. And it's like, also, how do you rest well in that too to make it great? Because, 3 hours of video games used to feel really good, and now it does not, which is disappointing. Unless you're playing online. I like playing online with friends, but solo?
Yeah, no, not enough. That's a conversation for another day. A good friend of mine gave me a book recommendation for a book called Leisure is the Basis of Culture, and diving into the definition of leisure, and that leisure is actually, it's learning or schooling, being open and receiving and taking in information and growing. And we've got that term mixed up with laziness, and so we feel bored when we have nothing to do. We feel bored and restless, like we need to go do something. So there's a difference, I think, even in our modern age, not just the compression of time, but when we do have time off, what's happening to us internally, we feel like we've got to go do something or fill that time.
Riley, we need to get an active counter of how many books Zach recommends. I think it was 2 the first episode, and this is 1. We just need to pop it up. I want the Taco Bell ding every time.
I'm trying to keep up with you.
Taco Bell. That would be good.
How do you feel? Are you feeling that compression of time?
I think so. It's weird because with being so busy, it makes time go by faster, which I feel can be a good thing. I feel like things just start to get done as time goes on faster. Compared to my childhood, I feel like I was bored a lot more. But learning how to rest well, if I take my weekend and I go on Instagram or something, it wastes those hours, and those times don't feel restful, versus like reading a book, something that actually slows you down. The rest is you actually get to rest.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting how technology even comes into our moments of leisure or rest, and that endless scroll, that endless distraction that just keeps moving, and you're not really sitting or resting on any particular thing. It's still movement. Riley, how about you?
So there was a verse, and the idea of time was actually something that came across my mind actually not too long ago. I think it was either one night last week or the week before, but it randomly came to my mind like at night before bed. And so I started like kind of thinking about it. Somebody had sent me a scripture earlier that day, like about like God's timing. And so it was something that I was thinking a lot about last week, I would say. And I think it's kind of odd that it's now something we're talking about on the podcast. And there was a scripture in Galatians, I think I was reading, that was kind of just talking about like almost like the theology of God's timing and time and it alone of itself. And it made me think a lot, like I think we had a conversation privately before, like about the idea of like what time will look like in heaven. And so I feel like that idea of time has been coming up a lot in my life. So I'm interested to see what happens from this conversation specifically on time. But there's something like everyone says, like right now there's that pressing of time. Like it feels like the clock is going faster and faster. And like for me in my life, it's really hard to try to find time to do things for my personal life compared to work. And just like my life is very chaotic right now, I feel like, with time. And I feel like I don't have enough time in my days. And I feel like somehow I'm working 8 days a week, but there's only 7 days a week. And it's like, how is this possible? How is this happening? And so I don't know like what the answer is to time, how to slow time back down, how to get back to that. And I don't know if you guys feel that, but like I feel like there's just this pressing of time going faster and faster, and it's like, at what point does the clock just explode and time stops? Like how do we get back on track with time? I feel like, and then like there's a whole other side of time. Like, well, what about God's timing compared to my timing? Like, what if like I want to have this and that in 3 years, and it's like, well, is that within this time, or is that, a longer time or a shorter time? So how does that play into God's timing too? It's like, I feel like this conversation could go so many ways in so many different places. And like, I don't know with whatever way it goes, like what a good answer is for some of these questions with time.
Yeah. Yeah, I think what you're describing is what a lot of people feel right now is maybe we don't have language for it, but we feel a sense of time being really fast and cross-pressured. And to Katya, your point, there's a ton of expectations to be further in the future than we are. So we have to like think 20 years out or 30 years out, or what are my goals or what are my aims and how far am I moved toward those? And it creates this sense of anxiety. I mean, post-COVID, the numbers for people who are struggling with anxiety and dealing with that, it's like through the roof. It's the curves look like that. And I was in New York, I think last weekend, and walking through the financial district, and there was this beautiful picture. I posted it because it was so strange to see the Trinity Church was at the end of the street. And you had these flags from Wall Street hanging off these massive buildings that were shadowing Trinity Church. And it was just like poignant. It stuck out to me because in an older world, we were talking about this, the church was the keeper of time. There was a liturgical time. We kind of marched through the story of anticipation and expectation coming up with the Advent season. That's what we enter in, and we remember that the story is longer and that there was a season of hope and expectation and waiting. And then there was a moment when God intervened in time, and you have the Christmas event and the incarnation, and then it turns, and you have Epiphany and Easter and Lent, and the church was the keeper of time. And that's what I loved. I saw Trinity Church right there, and it has a clock face on the church, but it's just shadowed by these mighty buildings, which is really appropriate because the church kind of lost the prominent place in culture, and it was the business world that started to mark time. In the business, we started to mark time based on commerce and movement and achievement and the exchange of goods, and that sped time up. And now technology is pushing that. Andrew Root doesn't. I'm going to do a book recommendation. Ding. Yeah, Andrew Root, great book, Secular Age, work off of Charles Taylor's. Ding, double book recommendation. Yeah, there you go. They get into this idea of time, but I think to answer Riley's question, the recalibration, that's part of what we're trying to recover with this wayfaring posture. And you think about this, like Jesus literally intersected people in their vocational life or when they were resting underneath a tree. And he came to them with an invitation. And we talked about this last time on episode 1. The Christian faith wasn't like an assent to a set of presuppositions in a contract that you sign. Mm-hmm. It was an embodied person, that God taking on flesh, and he would come and he'd say, follow me. And it was an invitation to a recovery, truly, of what it is to be a human. And he was inviting them to find something, and you hear this in Scripture. I'm the bread of life. Where else can you go? The living water, the way. All these ways that it was Jesus leading people into something that could not be discovered on our own. But his invitation was, come walk with me. And I imagine that in our day today, like if we were in the midst of all our busyness, and Jesus literally said, hey, take a moment and just come follow me. And he just started walking. How disruptive would that be? We talk about it in terms of long, slow, and deep. And entering into something where you don't know the outcome of the journey, you just know the pace is unfolding at that long, slow, deep way. How disruptive. Just like imagine that in your mind. And what would that do to you in an embodied way? To just imagine taking that first few steps on that journey. How strange would that be?
I feel like it would honestly feel so good. Like, I feel like in my own life, I've done that in some circumstances. Specifically when I was beginning college, I was in a sorority for about a year and a half. And then I decided that I didn't really align a lot in that crowd. And stepping away from that and deciding to follow, you're saying Jesus, in my head at the time, I was like, I'm following my gut. And it brought so much peace in my life. And it's nothing against that crowd of people, but it just, when it's true, it's true. And I think that the minute you drop everything, it's like you're carrying a heavy backpack and then you're walking with rocks in your backpack, and the minute you let it go and just start running on your own, it feels so good. And there's so much grace that can be found in it too. So I know it can be kind of scary, but I think that first step is the scariest. But then you just start running, and then you get on a Wayfarer podcast and cool things start happening. So I honestly feel like I think it's relieving.
Yeah.
For
well,
sure.
It's part of the confession is, like you had said, I have to have my 30s planned out. And part of the invitation is, what if God's invitation was, come follow me in this way and just set down the 30s. Just be in your 20s right now. Like,
Yeah.
it's like, what? Like, I don't know if I can do that. How irresponsible that would be. I don't know. What's that trigger in your mind?
Yeah, I mean, for me, just thinking about like Jesus doing that, I feel like it would be exciting because it'd be like a new adventure.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like a lot of people just feel stuck in their like rhythms of life, that, working a 9 to 5 and going home and doing this, and then maybe doing a fun thing on the weekend, and then starting all over again with your 9 to 5, and you go to the gym, and then you meal prep and you get the ground turkey because you're trying to be healthy and all that
Get a
different
bowl.
stuff. You get a bowl, that's super healthy. And it's like the thought of like breaking that. I feel like that's where it's like we want that Matrix level thing to happen, where it's like, our life is exciting. There's more to this than what we're living. And I think people are looking for that in a lot of different ways. I mean, I have in a ton of different ways tried to find something to, either to feel something or to numb the hurt of the day to day, which can come so frequently. And so I think, the thought of like getting called into something like that, if it was like really Jesus, it's like, man, that would be
Legit.
immaculate. Because it's like, you mean I could leave my job and it's like there's something better or
Perfect.
bigger out there? It's like, oh my gosh, please. That's why we want to win the lottery.
Yeah.
Just to get out of the rhythms of life to something bigger and better,
Yeah. Yeah, there's a tension there because life is happening. You talked about it last time, the remarkable ordinary. It's happening now, and yet there's something that we long for. And do we have to evacuate our current position, or is there a way we can find it in the midst of? There's a tension there. How do you feel about that? I mean, if the invitation to walk in that way, how disruptive is that to you, to just the norms to your day to day?
Are you saying more of like if I'm at work and Jesus showed up someday and was like physically following me, or is this more of like I'm doing my life, but I'm gonna follow Jesus, like follow him? Are you saying physically, like if you actually showed up like you did for the disciples, they were like casting the nets?
Come walk.
That would be insane. Like it'd be really hard to explain that to people. Like, this guy just showed up and told me to follow him. I've never heard of him. No one knows who he is.
How to get badge access to the office.
Right, like who got this guy in here? But now there's people following him who dropped their entire lives. But to have something like that where you have someone telling you you don't have to figure it out, like you can just follow me, because otherwise you're responsible for where you go, and that can be terrifying and difficult. But to have someone who's like, no, just follow me, it's a lot easier.
Yeah.
It's hard leading yourself.
Yeah. I think that's 100% right. I think, Riley, if we make the turn to kind of the next question, what happens is you have to confess that to do that, or to take Jesus up on that invitation to follow him, the way he was in making that invitation, it was to a complete unknown. Mm-hmm. And so there's this like tension of mystery and certainty that maybe is exhilarating. That might be part of the adventure of it. But there would have to be a level of comfort with not knowing how long it's going to take, Where exactly are we going? What are we going to discover on the way? Riley, when you go on a road trip, you just went up to watch football. Are you the kind of person who needs to know the agenda, start to finish? Or are you comfortable with the invitation that's a little bit less known up front?
That's a great question. I feel like it goes a little bit of both. Like, I feel like for me, like when it comes to like something, you know, not vacation, but something more important, like my future at a company or my future, you know, what I could see in my future for my life. When I see something like that and I take that into context, I feel like it's hard for me to just, you know, like drop that and follow someone who says follow me, because it's like I have all of these ideas in my head, all of these things that, you know, I want or that I think God wants for me, and it's hard for me in those moments and those, you know, when those things come up, to just be like, no, that can wait, let me just drop that, and just go on this journey for a couple years. It's hard for me to try to do that. But then on the other hand, like when I feel like I'm on vacation and like I have, time is irrelevant at that point, it's like, hey, what are we going to do today? I don't know. Let's figure it out. Let's go on a walk. And, oh, look, we found this coffee shop. Oh, look, this is a cool building. Let's walk in here. Like there's that difference between like the thought of like what I have in my future compared to the thought of like, time's irrelevant in this scenario. Like, so I don't know if that helps with that, but that's kind of what, I'm thinking. I guess it's hard to try to just stop, like put the plans you have for your life aside and, hear what God's saying and be like, no, drop that and follow me. Like your plan is safe with me. It's hard to do that. And I feel like it takes discipline. Like that's the one thing that kept coming to my mind in this whole conversation of like between the recalibration and all and the long, slow, deep, like in order to do any of these things, it takes like discipline to slow down, stop, recalibrate, take that long, slow, deep posture and go on this journey and, follow.
Yeah, it's Katia, when you think about like what would have to be essentially true for you to take somebody up on that invitation, to say like what would have to be there in order for you to say, okay, you lead?
As funny as it sounds, if they're like, this is gonna sound so cheesy, but like if they said, like, I'll make all of your dreams come true. Like, it sounds so cheesy, but like when you were talking, it reminded me of a conversation I had with my mom the other day, and we're just sitting talking about like whatever's going on, and she just randomly was like, so like, what do you want for your life? Like, what do you see yourself doing in the next couple years? Because I'm a senior in college. I should be rolling with that sort of thing. And I was like, well, you see, I'm going to be doing my MBA next year. And after that, I'm going to have my job lined up. And after that, I'm going to just coast with that and see how it goes in the podcast. We're going to see where that goes to. And I'm going to have a steady job. It was very like I controlled the end goal. Yeah. And after I finished my spiel, she goes, come on. You're lying to yourself. Like, that is not true. You 100% do not see yourself doing that. Like, be honest, be vulnerable, and tell me what you want. And when I did it the second time, it was like a completely different story. It was like, I'd really like to fall in love. I'd love to have a family. I'd love to lead my life and inspire others and, just follow my heart. It was so much more dreamlike. So, like, if somebody came up to me and said, I'll make all your dreams come true, I would be like, sign me up. And I would say, throw away all the textbooks and stuff and,
But like, I feel like your initial response to your mom, like in that question, I feel like that is the reason you answer that is like part of, because of our time, like because we're going so fast. It's like, you're going, like, keep going. You gotta have this all figured out right now. So it's like, okay, I'll pick like the thing that makes the most sense into this world's context. And it's like, no, slow down. Exactly. And take that more dreamlike posture almost.
Yeah, it's vulnerable. It's really vulnerable. It's like uncomfortable to say that almost, because it's like nowadays there's this like normalized concept that you have to conquer the corporate world and, just have ultimate control over everything. And it's like, that's so cool. I really respect you if you're, doing that. But at the same time, like, what happened to just floating and enjoying everything while being successful and still providing, but, just having this childlike wonder walking, I think that's not there anymore. Just this childlike trust and wonder.
Yeah, I think it depends so much on like the person. Like I have like friends who like they want to climb the corporate ladder. And like that's what like really gets them going, which like blows my mind because I'm just like that. I hate it so much. I hate corporate lifestyle. But like other people like really enjoy that. And like that is like their dream is to like to become a CEO, which is like great for them and like definitely pursue it. And one of my like favorite questions around this kind of idea of like dreaming, like what do you practically want to pursue versus like dreams? I always like if you got $100 million right now, what would you do? And it's like, what car would you buy? I started asking them all these questions, like where would you have houses? Of course. Like, yeah. What car, all this stuff, like who would you give money to? All this stuff, hopefully me. And then I'm like, okay, it's like after like 5 minutes of just like all the material stuff they'd buy, you're like, so what would you do with your day? And it's always just like, I had a buddy, he was a middle school teacher, and he goes, I'd be like a college advisor. I think I'd really love doing that. I go, dude, that's like 2 steps away from where you're at right now. You do not need the 100 million to get there, And it's like, I feel like that's a great question because you get people really kind of off kilter because they're not in the pocket of, oh, I'm going to do this and this and this and get promotion and then this. And it's like, even if that might be what they want to do, it's like, well, what is like the thing, for you?
Right.
I had someone who wanted to be an angel investor. So they wanted to be in the top of corporate ladders always, and collect a lot of ladders, which is like
more ladders.
Yeah. And it's like, all right. It's
No, but like you said,
thing.
it's cool too. Like that's cool. If that's your dream, like it's respectable for sure.
Absolutely.
I don't want to throw anyone down if you do like the corporate
like
I feel like I totally just.
I think
the college girl's giving you corporate lifestyle tips. Just kidding. It's I wasn't supposed to. I was just everybody's different. I'm not
so funny.
I think what's at the heart of this, like for everybody listening and us in the conversation, that pressure to say, story one, right? I'll be here. I'll do this. I'll do that. I'll do that. And even in the version you give where, okay, what if somebody could come up and fund everything? Well, I would do this. I would do this. I would do this. It's still like our default posture is so directive. It's so us at the center defining. And I think that's part of what we want to have this conversation for, because there's a different way, a more helpful way of imagining this story, and not just imagining it, but literally reading it off the page. Jesus walks up to some friends and says, follow me. They start following him. And then one of those friends gets one of his friends, and that guy starts walking towards Jesus, and Jesus calls him out. The friend literally made like a snarky comment about Jesus, like, who's this guy, right? And Jesus didn't hear it. He knew the guy's heart, and he spoke to that guy, and he said, here's one in whom there's no guile. Like, here's one who's like pure at heart. And he spoke right to the inner reality of that person, like who he was. And it's such a beautiful picture, because here's this person starting to follow the one who knows him best. And it's like, pause the movie right there. That's literally what's happening, and what's on the table is what Katya is describing. What if the one who made you is the one who's inviting you to take off the burden of defining and designing your existence, and instead shift the posture and say, I'm going to make a confession right here, right now. You know me better than I know myself. And so even if you could fund all of my dreams are probably corrupted by all sorts of false expectations and stuff that's been put on me and that I'm trying to put on somebody else. I need to walk with you for a bit to even figure out what's really in there. And I love that invitation that Jesus makes. But it is hard to make that shift, to let go of, you said it, like the control that we feel like we have to have. And I feel like you have, the level of trust to say, okay, you really know me better than I know myself, and you're going to unfold something. I think that trust, I mean, that's what faith is essentially. It's this active trust that leans, there's a shift in weight, right? Jonathan, how fast do you build trust? Like, what's it take for you to trust someone enough to not direct it?
It takes time, for sure. My dad used to always tell me that relationships were built on trust, and I was a bit of a rotten kid. So you can build trust for so long, and then you lie one time, and then it's just gone. So it goes away so quickly. But yeah, it takes time.
Yeah, it takes time. I want to hear from everybody on this, but in your life of faith, what are you doing to try to make that shift, to try to be less direct? Because again, we're American Christians who are like, so here's the deal, God, we're going to, and then we chalk it out. And that's still, it's like, that's actually not this walk by faith, becoming who God's made us to be. It's much more of us kind of still trying to shape and fashion and be our own God. And so we're trying to make this shift. What's helping you to take a more restful posture and a more open posture? How are you able to kind of pry loose that grip that we've all just been trained to have?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, it was a very learned on the job type situation. I felt like, in the early professional years, I got fired like 3 different times from jobs. I was giving you a hard time about corporate lifestyle. I'm over here getting fired.
I speak from experience.
Yeah, it's like, you don't know anything. I'm terrible at it, But I think, jobs isn't everything in like your life and your dreams, but, it obviously is a big part of it. And so many times I would have plans and have ideas of, how I was going to pursue. And it's like, if you look at the last like 6 years of my life, like it's been a crazy just roller coaster of all these different things that have happened and, different routes and dead ends and turns and all this different stuff. And so I feel like it's been a real learned experience of being like, man, I want to hold, you want to hold on, but it's like, you realize the chaos of life. It's like, you can't really hold on to this. And so that kind of is twofold, where it's like, I've had to learn to let go because I've realized I never really have it, even if I want to have it, hold on to it. And
it's
so
an illusion.
Yeah. And so the freedom of, knowing that it is in somebody's hands, and that, the hard things, the challenging things where you're just kind of like, God, this kind of stinks. It's like seeing how he works that for a purpose. I think it takes years sometimes. You're talking about long, slow, deep. Like, I mean, sometimes it's like, you have to wait years before you can look back on something and be like, oh, that did this in my life, which caused all these things to happen that I would never understood. And so I think years, it's been a process of years to really learn that lesson and try to get into that. And, it's funny, when last episode I talked about hard things are good for you, makes you a strong tree. And it's like, but man, it can be hard with that trust, knowing that God has your life in your hands, and then hard things happen. You're just like, well, dang it, God, I want all my dreams to come true, and it's like, his plans for our lives are ultimately better, because he has all the details, but in the moments, it can feel really heavy and hard because you're like, well, that's not how I wanted that to go, kind of thing. So
a very practical thing that I've found is, and it's a bizarre concept if you really think about it, just to bring your requests to God. Like when you're stressed and anxious about things, to just talk to God about them, and somehow he will make them right and give you ideas. But then when I do it, it works, and that's been very powerful. And I think that's a lot of giving up trust and saying, God, I don't know what to do with this, like hit me up with any ideas. And then when you do that and you say all these things, and you just kind of say, all right, I'm not going to worry about them, I feel like God's going to do something with them. And then when you look back about those things you brought up, like they've been solved, and he answers that. But that's I feel like a big way to rest and pause is prayer, to sit and just talk to God about what's running through your mind.
Totally. I feel like prayer life is something that a lot of, like, at least people around me who are Christian, like, don't really practice as often, but it's almost like meditation. Like you're grounding yourself, you're connecting yourself with like the higher power, and Like there's like a sense of control in that, I feel, like what you just said.
Is a great way of thinking about prayer. I can't remember who wrote this, so I don't have a book recommendation for it, but it's like a 0.5 book recommendation. But the idea that when you're praying, you've got a rope in your hand, and you think you're pulling yourself from a boat, and you're pulling the shore towards yourself, but you're actually in the boat pulling your boat to the shore. And this idea of kids thinking and imagining that they're pulling the whole world to themselves, and actually they're anchored to the shore, and they're pulling in their prayer back to the source of their stability and their strength. And I think prayer is that honest confession if we can get there. Like, prayer can be a lot of me directing everything, but I think what you guys are saying is there's a rest that comes when you say, I don't know. Like, there's even a scripture that we love that, I don't know, God, but my eyes are on you. Like, I don't know, but my eyes are on you. You're my hope. You're my trust. That's all I got. It's a more restful posture. Riley, what are you doing right now to open up your posture and to like learn to slow down and not try to direct or control the future, but really open yourself to this reality that God is actually leading? It's only true if it's true, and so I'm going to let him do it.
Yeah, I would say, it's good that we're talking about this, because I feel like I almost need like this little kick, like remember what your vision is on, and remember who your trust is in, and what this process looks like. And so it's good. I'm glad we're talking about it, because I feel like what it looks like for me is, just kind of going with the flow still, keeping that, long, slow, deep posture, and, trying to, make sure I'm still recalibrating, and just going with that flow, making sure you're not trying to be like, all right, well, how, let me do all of this faster so that way I can, get to that rest one day. It's like, no, keep going, keep doing your thing, keep, praying, being in meditation, and eventually that, it'll come, there's that day at the end, where whatever he has planned for you, whatever that rest day is, it'll come eventually and naturally. And so I think it's just that posture of like, all right, just stay on the path, keep going. And I think part of it too is like you guys were talking about, like that prayer and that meditation. Like, I think that's part of like how you get through it. Like if your prayer life is not very active, and you're not, staying in prayer, and you're not meditating, like you're just going to keep feeling antsy and pressy, and like, all right, how can I do this quicker? How can I get to that end goal faster? And it's like, no, slow down, recalibrate, deep breath, and long, slow, deep. Keep going on that path, and you'll get there. And so and I'm saying that, and I need that right now. So it's good. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a conversation we got to have, because I think there's a version again of Christianity and the Christian faith where we go, okay, I think it goes like this. I believe this set of things that are propositionally true, and I accept those. Okay, cool. I've got those. Now I got to get to work and define my life, set my goals, get to my 30s, climb the ladder, get the money, be generous, be helpful, have kids. And I just pretty soon I'm frantic and I'm anxious. And I think what we're hoping to say is, even just now, again, episode 1, the recovery of perspective. Like the recovery of perspective is God is there calling us to follow him. Step 1. Step 2, it's a recovery of this pace that is going to unfold. It's going to unfold. There's more that God knows, the sum total of the things that he knows about even who you are in this moment. If we can just confess that, like, you are God, I am not. Like, that's it. Like, I believe that you are God, I am not, and that you are loving. Right? And this is the fundamental confession about love. Love seeks the other person's highest good. Okay, so if I really believe that God is love, okay, that's the Christian confession. God is love. He's greater. He's not time-bound. He's outside of time, created me, and he's in front of me saying, I am love. Love seeks the other person's highest good, so follow me into the highest good. That's the invitation. That's what we're all saying. Like, we want that. We want to make that shift to say, I want that. I want to rest. I want to lay down control of my life. That's that surrender and that trust, and say, okay, I've found the one who is looking for me, and I'm going to take him at his word. It's going to change my perspective. It's going to cause me to recalibrate my life and say, it's not how fast can I get through my 30s. It's going to be, can I do this long, slow, deep thing and see what happens, see what's there, see what unfolds in my 20s. That's wild. When you all hear long, slow, deep, when you think about that idea of a longer story, a slower journey, a deeper life, just what do you imagine? What comes to your imaginative mind? Because we say that a lot. Like this, we are wayfarers, never alone, walking on, and the journey we're on is long and slow and deep. What have you found from just kind of thinking and imagining about the story being long, slow, deep?
My first thought is just, it's kind of frustrating because I want it now. I want everything now. My Amazon, when I see that Amazon Prime 4 a.m. or 8 a.m., it's like that night.
How do they do this, by the way?
I have no idea.
I mean, you can order something at 7 at night and then it's at your porch at 7:50.
Yeah, so like frustrating because it takes time and you don't have as much progress as you wish you had, and but as like once you start getting into it and you do have those things, like you really have them, because the things that you get quickly, I feel like they can go away quickly, but things that you work for and wait for, you waited for them, so like I feel like you can hold on to it better.
Yeah, I like that.
I have to agree with that. Frustrating, because I mean, at one point of my own journey, the words "I feel like God is playing a joke on me" have definitely come out of my mouth, because it's like sometimes you have to go through these like trials to learn a lesson, but the lessons are never fun to learn. It really isn't, because if it was not a lesson, it wouldn't be hard. Like, sometimes it's growing pains, and I think the growing pains are what make you question and get frustrated. And I feel like as human beings, personally, like you have a friendship with God. It's like a humanly relationship almost, of like, we're friends, we're buddies, we're here for each other. And sometimes I personify God and I imagine him with like selfishness or like greed, in the sense of like, you're doing this for me, like that sort of vibe. And then I'm like, you're playing a joke on me. Like, it's not cool. I've told you what I want, and you're just like dangling it in front of me and then taking it away. And I think after the fact, though, you look back and you're like, man, that really was a lesson. Yeah. Because if I would have gone forward with that whole track, it would have been bad. Yeah. So thank you, God, for watching out for me. But definitely frustrating for sure. And I always hate when people tell me, you just got to be patient. Mm-hmm. It's like, those are, right? It's like so frustrating. Like, obviously, what else am I going to do? But like, I just wish there was like another way to say that. Yeah.
Yeah, I like to say life's like farming. That's a little bit, instead of patient, it's like, it's farming. There's 1,000 little things it's like to do on the farm. They're just constantly working and like resting. And it's like, everything's a little bit like farming.
You know what? Book recommendation. Wendell-Berry. Read some Wendell-Berry. That's it. If you read the New Testament, Jesus constantly going back to agriculture metaphors. Yep. For that very purpose. You can't force it. There's a little bit.
It's like Psalm 1, be a tree planted by streams of water. And it's like, trees take like a long time to grow.
I was just going to say a tree. What is long, slow, and deep?
There you go.
A tree.
Jared talked about a tree the first episode too.
Right there.
Riley's getting another tattoo.
You're huge on agriculture. I've captured that.
Yeah. When I hear long, slow, deep, I think of like rhythms of life a lot of the times, because it's like not every minute and hour of your day is going to be like that. Yeah. But I often think of like the TikTok or like Instagram videos where it has somebody like chopping up wood, like making a bonfire, like catching a fish, like cooking it like out in the wilderness, and it's like, just the act of like doing things manually, where we have microwaves and things, I think is very like, it's very, I think, rare nowadays to like do something like how you make tea. Like, are you just, I have an Instant Pot where I just press a button and it heats up the water, I pour it over and it's ready, but like the act of, I don't know how you'd make tea manually, to be honest, but
get some flowers.
Yeah. I think that those kind of process, I don't even know. Could I take that and make tea? I don't even.
Possibly.
The flowers in the shot, that'd be embarrassing. It'd be like, what's he pointing at?
He's pointing at flowers for the audio friends.
That's right.
There's flowers on the table. There's a
clarifying.
candle and a pumpkin, even though.
Here's the invitation I want to make as we think about episode 3, right? Perspective first. The invitation is coming from the one who is faithful, and he will do it. There's the God who made you, highest love, inviting us to follow him. And so we don't lead, we follow. We got to get comfortable with that. Number 1. Number 2, we have to get comfortable and recalibrate to the idea that it's not going to be fast. It's not supposed to be. The idea is not to get through it and be like, oh, I figured out Christianity and I did it in a weekend. I did Duolingo and I speak Christian. That's not it. It's the invitation is to a lifelong pursuit of walking this thing out. Am I comfortable with that? That's what the wayfaring life is. The presupposition is God is faithful. He took on flesh. He came and said, follow me. I'll show you the way. Come walk in the way. Okay. And the second invitation is we're going to go slow. And it's going to take longer. It's going to be slower. But what you're going to discover is going to be so deeply rich. And it's going to be that longing for your heart. It's going to touch adventure. It's going to touch meaning. It's going to touch purpose. It's going to touch all of these things. And I think I'll leave you with this because you brought this up. It's so good. There's almost like a surprise twist in the story that'll be the setup, I guess, for episode 3, that what we discover is that he's walking with us, and that the whole point, you mentioned friendship with God, that's what's like, is God's like, even this wayfaring journey isn't about like get from here to there. And you go, oh, well, can I do that faster? Is there a way I can get in a commuter lane and do the Christian life faster? If the goal is good, it's God, then I want to get there as fast as I can. And God recalibrates that and goes, no. How about you and I walk together? And it's not just a walk where you're walking to me. I'm going to come to you and walk with you. And we're going to spend the rest of this time getting to know each other, you getting to know me, because at the end of the day, you're made in my image. You're made to look just like me. And so let's walk that out. That's incredible to think. It's not just us walking to something or someone. We're walking with someone. We'll pick that up on episode 3. Sound good?
Yeah.
Sounds good.
I love it.
Great.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. It's so good to get to work this stuff out together. I'm going to go to, we call her Queen of 3 because she is the helping people connect person. Katia, how does somebody connect with this conversation, stay in touch with us, send messages back and forth? How do we do that?
So you can actually connect with us on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and you can DM us. You can shoot us a little message of something you might want to hear, something that you maybe connect with during one of the episodes. So feel free to just mind dump in any of those platforms to us.
I love that. And please do send those thoughts and those comments and questions. I think it'd be so fun to listen to people who are joining and they're walking this out with us and they go, okay, I heard you so long, so deep, but I too hate that. How do I get over that part that's frictiony and frustrating? So send us all that stuff.
Let's connect.
Yeah, I love it. All right. We'll see you at episode 3. Thanks for hanging out. It's so good to walk it out with all of you.
Oh, yeah. See you guys.
Peace.
Adios.